call will be embargoed until tomorrow morning. You may be contacted by media this afternoon, but that would be, again, under the same embargo conditions. So you should have received earlier a copy of the final plan, a copy of our fact sheet on 4 key areas, a copy of our press release, and a copy of the overview of the changes from the final, from the draft to the final. So with that, I'll turn it over to the Commissioner to walk through a couple areas and then take your questions.
Great. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today. We are celebrating that we have submitted our final ESSA plan to the U.S. Department of Education, and I wanted to walk through several notable changes around district and school accountability because of the impact we know it has on you as district superintendents, and then to note a time for questions. So we will talk through several pieces during the meeting. Some of this, in less detail, will be a repeat from what we had at our virtual meeting last week, but we did want to highlight some additional items around stakeholder feedback and engagement we had, as well as changes we made based on that stakeholder feedback, particularly around district and school accountability, and then we'll open it up to questions from you. So let's start with just generally an overview of how we got to the plan. Again, we'll talk a bit more about district and school accountability and open it to questions. We had to show you this slide. I think we're the only state in the union who can actually do this, somehow embed ESSA in the name of our state. But we are excited about how ESSA is really taking what we started under Tennessee Succeeds and taking it to the next level, solidifying what we know has been working in Tennessee, and then making changes based on a moment of continuous improvement we feel like we are currently in. We built Tennessee Succeeds, as you know, around 5 specific priorities: early foundations in literacy, high school and bridge to post-secondary, all means all, educator support, and district empowerment. This was all built on those foundations of standards, assessment, and accountability. And we believe we have taken all 5 of these priorities and taken them to a really significant place through the ESSA plan, while at the same time using this moment to make positive changes, particularly as it relates to accountability. As a reminder, you have been involved in some level of this stakeholder engagement, but wanted to share what we were able to do across the state really over the last almost a year. We've had 6 working groups with 67 members across the state give input on the plan that we were able to submit. We had over 3,000 stakeholders providing input specifically over the summer, even before we got ultimately to our first draft. We had dozens of listening sessions in small groups and in some larger groups, as well as informational meetings and webinars with teachers, parents, community members, advocacy groups, and legislators, particularly our legislators on our education committees. We've been presenting to the state board around ESSA over the last couple meetings, and we will also present to them at the April meeting. We've had 6 town hall meetings over December and January. We had over 1,000 stakeholders attend the town halls, and we received comments from those stakeholders on exit tickets, and we had over 2,000 comments received from either online or written feedback, some of those being in the form of letters, some of them emails, some responding to the online feedback forms. And so we have had a great bit of stakeholder engagement over the past year, and we appreciate how you have been engaged in all of this process as well. We wanted to share some notable changes in the final plan based on stakeholder feedback from that first draft. These include changes to district accountability, school accountability, school improvement, English learner support, and the accountability metrics associated with that support. We have some other key areas where we got your feedback around earned autonomy, clarity on educator support, and some additions or changes to the transparency metrics. So I'm going to start with district accountability, and I know if you were part of the District Assessment and Accountability Advisory Group, or you're on the TOS board, or you were part of the director virtual meeting last week, you have seen some version of the district accountability components, but wanted to take some time to talk through this with all of the directors who are on this call. We got stakeholder feedback from the very beginning. In fact, I remember back the very beginning of June, end of May of last year, we did regional meetings with our directors across the state, and we heard from you that as we were introducing the new school accountability framework, you wanted to ensure that we had alignment to district accountability. And so we have continued to keep those comments front and center as we have created this alignment, and I will show you in a moment where that alignment occurred. We've added new measures of school quality and student success. Those were required by ESSA. You will know those as the chronically out of school measure, which was a name change that I'll share in a moment, as well as the ready graduate metric. We maintained the best of option for districts that was inherent in the district accountability model we submitted as under the waiver back in March of 2015 and received feedback that it would be accepted in July. We have maintained that best of option. We've included science assessments now within the achievement and growth indicators based on feedback. We got specific feedback from directors about continuing that focus on ACT and how we had originally conceptualized accountability under the waiver, and that we needed to sustain an emphasis on high participation rates, again, also required through ESSA. So here are some of our updates from what was submitted under the waiver, again, back in 2015. We updated our district accountability framework to more closely align with school accountability. We have first reconfigured the areas from 8 to 6 metrics. So all subjects, math, ELA, and science, are collapsed into an overall success rate for the grade band. We've added chronically out of school, which is our terminology of the inclusion of both chronic absenteeism plus the out-of-school suspension rates, and ELPA, which is our English proficiency assessment, as content areas. Again, the ELPA component is also required through ESSA. 2, we've added an absolute performance pathway to both the all-student determination as well as the subgroups of students determination. We have expanded the definition of a value-added pathway. We're excited about that. That really brings in some of our work around these these new metrics that are in the school accountability framework. 4, we've updated the weights for the subgroup status, and you're going to see some updating of weights as well in school accountability that I'll share momentarily. And we've modified the names of and added an additional level to the final district determination. Let me show that on a visual. Some of you have seen a version of this visual before. You'll remember that in district accountability, we have sort of a minimum gate. That minimum gate is a minimum progress goal, and we do need districts to meet all 4 of the checks in that minimum progress goal. If they do not meet all of those checks, then they would be immediately in need of improvement. Those checks are participation in the statewide assessment, not only across the grade bands, but also in subgroups. It does include ACT. We also have the achievement goal noted, which is the district's ability to keep their students on track or mastered at a relevant rate, or at that 33% of all eligible content areas. We have a value-added goal. Did the district achieve at least TVOS level 3 or make comparable or greater gains on to the state in 33% of eligible content areas? And then there is a related subgroup goal. This is again showing, did you meet minimal expectations set by the state? If the answer is no, then that district would be across any of these checks. If the answer is no, then that particular district would be in need of improvement. You'll note that's in red. You go all the way to the bottom, you'll see the in need of improvement. If you have yes across the board, and this is in green, you would then move to step 2, which is an all-student determination, which is based on your success rate for each grade band, as I noted earlier. It's your graduation rate plus the ready graduate indicator, your chronically out of school indicator, and ELPA. And then you would move to step 3, which would be your subgroup determination across the 4 historically underserved groups. That would then culminate in your final determination, which is weighted at 60% for all students and subgroups at 40% of students. Again, that's based on how we fall out in terms of our statewide distribution across groups. And ultimately, you would then receive a final label: marginal, satisfactory, advancing, or exemplary. There is alignment in our ESSA plan between the district accountability model and school accountability model. We felt like this chart gives you a very nice side-by-side comparison. Note one particular item: when you get down to the bottom of district accountability, you will notice the 5 determinations that are labeled. Based on the current statewide law that we have around providing an A through F designation for schools, we would have 5 school grades: A, B, C, D, and F. F designating priority schools, our bottom 5% schools, and a minus sign would be added for any school that was pulled in as a focus school. That focus school determination is in our ESSA plan, so I encourage you, as that is posted, to actually read through the entire section on the determination of how a focus school will be designated. So let's move to school accountability and how it is aligned to district accountability. We heard from stakeholders that chronically out-of-school indicator, let me first say, we heard from them that chronic absenteeism was not a full term that really described everything that was part of chronically out of school. So we changed this to chronically out of school because it is chronic absenteeism. It's the number of students who are missing 10% or more of the school year, plus it is pulling in discipline data from out-of-school suspensions. And so the term chronically out of school is being used to incorporate both of those two items. We heard that should be weighted appropriately as a single metric. This is under that heading of opportunity to learn, where we will determine over time, as noted in the ESSA plan, how we would pull in additional metrics. But for now, it will be one chronically out of school indicator, and it will be weighted appropriately as that single metric of chronic absenteeism and out of school suspensions. We also heard that the achievement indicator should be ultimately weighted more heavily because that is the goal, to move our students to achievement. That we should be focusing on growth across all the indicators, and that is a critical component of the success in Tennessee to date, and folks wanted to see that continue. We also heard that the ELPA indicator should be included for all students, and we have done that. We heard the Ready Graduate indicator should reflect a significant weight for high school students, and so we will show we did have a weighting change there, and that the Ready Graduate indicator should include a check for military readiness to highlight that along that college and career spectrum, that military readiness is important to us as Tennesseans. And then finally, the weighting of all students and all subgroups should be reflective of our statewide demographic trends. You will note that weighting is what we also chose as weighting for district accountability, that 60-40 split. This is a nice graph that shows the weightings in the pie charts for both K-8 schools and high schools. You will note on this particular chart that there were some changes in the weightings, and I will point those out on charts that you have seen before. This was the K-8 school example that you saw us use in town hall meetings or in small group sessions. And on this particular chart, you'll note that achievement is now at that 45% level. So that did change. The growth level is at 35%. We changed chronically out of school and reduced it from the, it used to be 20%, we've reduced that to 10%, and then ultimately used that ELPA indicator in the all student group as well. We did note under achievement that you can achieve the achievement goal through absolute proficiency or through that rigorous AMO target that will be set by the department, and we have certainly noted that in the asterisk, not an asterisk, but we've noted that here on the chart. On the asterisk, you will note the weighting for achievement and growth across the board as well. In the high school example, we just wanted to point out that the Ready Graduate indicator did move up slightly to the 25% weighting. That was, again, based on feedback around the importance of post-secondary and pointing out that those 4 checks in the Ready Graduate metric that now include a check for 21 or above on the ACT, a check for the completion of 4 early post-secondary opportunities, a check for the completion of 2 early post-secondary opportunities, and the earning of industry certifications, and that check for military readiness, is critical, and it's important for all of our high school students to come out with that ready graduate indicator checked. And so we did move the weighting up slightly to 25%, and you can see the rest stayed generally the same, certainly with the exception of the achievement weighting being slightly higher and then ELSA being brought into all students. So I'm going to stop there and note that we do want to take some time for questions and to highlight that while there are other changes from the first draft to the final draft, we felt like these would be the particular changes that you might have the most interest in as district leadership, to see what did we do with district accountability to align to school accountability, and what changes did we make on school accountability with a particular emphasis placed on your specific feedback, what directors told us. And we did try to honor what we heard, as well as to ensure that alignment that I know we all care about between district and school accountability. So I'm going to stop there. We'll open this up for questions, and then I will back to a timeline and next steps for some of the work that we are doing.
As a reminder, if you can please mute if you are not asking a question, background noise. You're also welcome to type your question in the chat box in the webinar to do that.
All right, I think somebody is on. Go ahead and introduce yourself and ask your question.
I've got the 40 low answer, but like I said.
We're hearing someone talking, but we did not hear your question. Okay, anyone have a question, please introduce yourself and go ahead and ask your question or type it into the chat feature. Okay, while you're thinking about your questions, I did want to note a couple other items. I want to say thank you to the District Assessment and Accountability Advisory Group and the TOF Board, who did give us feedback on both the district accountability alignment and to the work that we were doing with focus schools. So we appreciate the time that you took to give us feedback on that and to engage with us. The other item that I will say that we heard from you about that we are taking very seriously is how do we bring in specific stakeholder groups into how these particular changes impact them. And so we are putting forth at least 4 webinars during the next 4 weeks where we will be sharing the impact of this ESSA plan on specific groups. We will be doing webinars with special education directors, folks at the district and school level who work with our English language learners. We will have a specific webinar on EPSOs and how we should be thinking about early post-secondary opportunities. And our 4th webinar is on student supports and that chronically out-of-school indicator. So we will do some deep dives on specific webinars for groups this month. And then as we're going out from the department and doing presentations, those will be part of our presentations through our regional presentations, through CORE, through our superintendent study groups, as well as what we do in training over the summer going into the fall. So I talked long enough where maybe you were able to think of a question that you might have, so please introduce yourself and ask a question if you have one. Okay, then let me go ahead and move to the timeline. This is our last slide, and I do want to spend just a moment on this. We did submit our plan to the U.S. Department of Education just about an hour ago. We are now in the process of awaiting their review and approval. We want you to know that much of the work, in fact, the vast majority of the work we already have underway in our state, but we are taking some of this to another level through alignment, through additional ways that we will create supports starting on July 1, which is when this particular plan takes effect. We are going to continue to work with stakeholders and districts around an implementation guide that will give more information on each of these areas and how it impacts you, as well as those webinars and other sessions that I mentioned before. We know that every single thing in this plan was stakeholder-driven. It was a plan that I truly believe is our plan as a group of Tennesseans who care about the vision that we've set for more of our students to have choice and options and success past high school, and believe that this plan points us in the direction of that success. We know partnership is ultimately the key to ensuring that this work happens and that implementation is deep, and that we move through the pieces with really vigor. I have to say, I always feel like when we put forth a plan, we've got to do it in a way that allows us to implement well with each other, but do it with urgency, that we are moving to improve the lives of all students. And I think this plan is one that you will agree does this for Tennessee. So with that, we will end. You have embargoed information. If media reaches out, we hope you will provide embargoed comments around the process and around the plan, and we look forward to having those next conversations with you about implementation. And thank you again for your time today.